warm welcome to everyone, our rethinkers, mentors, and mentees. Today, we're celebrating 100 days of our mentorship program of learning and growing together. So, we quickly start ahead with a big thank you to all of you for the massive support. We have almost reached, more than 50,000 plus engagements, 5,000 followers, and more than 11 initiatives going on. So, I'll start with the mentorship program and the vision behind it. We realized that there were people who were looking for ways to contribute to the development of our community and with their expertise. So a bunch of professionals were also looking for ways to enhance their skills. And then here came the mentorship program. We decided and we went ahead with more than 200 plus registrations, including mentors and mentees, with 10 plus premium mentors from top notch companies of the world. And we did a lot of interviews and understand what were the requirements from both of them. After which we did a quick matchmaking for mentors and mentees to understand and get the best thing on board. Moving ahead, I'll start with the mentor's journey, and I'd like to have a Prajit. Is he here?
Yep, he is here.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Prajit. So we'd like to hear from you. How was your journey?
Thanks for letting me speak. So I think it was surprising because it started with me getting on a call with Mayur and just discussing randomly like what's happening. And I was curious to ask him about like how's this program of yours going, and then he was kind enough to actually say that why don't you come on board and see how it's going. And I was pretty surprised at the beginning. I was wondering like how could it possibly go, what are the possibilities, how could I help myself and somebody else in the process. And eventually I think it turned out well because I've had some really enthusiastic people to work together with, and they're young, they're enthusiastic about getting to know more about design, learning to know more about that. I think Pranav and Manuswani are here on the call. They can speak for themselves when they present. But for me, at least, it has been like really interesting to see other people coming into design because I myself started as an engineer, so I know the hustle. So it was nice to actually meet other people whom I could groom and help get into design who weren't necessarily from design. So yeah, proud factor for me. Thank you, Mayur. Thank you, everybody for letting me actually contribute.
Thank you, Prajit. Thanks a lot. And I'll call my co-host Alok for sharing his journey as well as a mentor.
Garima. Thanks. So I'll have kind of a multiple kind of experiences here because I have been a part of that background as well, who was into planning and onboarding people and busy in the matchmaking part of mentorship as well. So I have been through those journey as well and have seen how interesting people were and how enthusiastic people were in terms of being a mentor and mentees both. That was a very interesting part. Other than that, if I talk about just my as a journey as a mentor, I really enjoyed it a lot because it was one of my personal interests as well to kind of help someone, and it just gives me kind of an own satisfaction to help some newcomers to understand their own mindset. New people has come with their own learning, their own challenges that maybe we have faced 10, 12 years back, and that journey, that challenges has been completely changed. So for me, it was interesting to understand their new challenges and help them out. It was really interesting to understand their pain point in terms of how do they fight for their own design. One thing I always see that they love to make their designs and they love to solve the problems, but they kind of lack in terms of how do they present to the management and fight that, hey, this is awesome, let's go ahead with this. So those things I used to see a lot. And it was interesting to help them out in terms of how to be very confident and fight for your design and prove your design that this is what you have done is awesome. That thing was kind of a great part I have done. I had 4 people as a mentees, and all of them were kind of very enthusiastic in terms of learning. I did multiple sessions in terms of UX design and research. How do we go into minute things of research? Because usually when we talk about research, we go very bookish. But when we actually start doing that, we realize that, hey, very small things you missed. You should not be missing those stuff because that can hamper your experience and results as well. So overall, I love this initiative completely. I love my mentor. I love my mentees and my sessions. It was very awesome experience. And thank you so much, everyone, to be my mentees. And thanks to Rethinking UX to give me opportunity.
Wow, Anu, thank you so much. This makes us more exciting going ahead now. So without taking much time, we'll start with the presentations. And just a quick and small request to everyone to keep themselves on mute. We will be taking presentations, and for now, we're not allowing, due to time constraints, we won't have any question answers going on here. But I think all the mentees would be very glad to, take their questions or any queries that you have. You can drop them a message on Slack or connect with them later. I'll start with the first presentation. We have a deadly combination of designer and developer with a history of working in analytics industry, mentored by Akshita. So I call upon Rashika Gupta for starting her presentation.
Thank you, Garima. I'll just start.
All over to you. Thank you.
So is it visible?
Yes, we can see.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so before I move forward, I would like to introduce myself. I am Rashika Gupta and I work as a UX designer and developer at EXL Services Gurgaon. I have around 3 years of experience in development and design, and I come from engineering background. So as I move forward with my case study, it is EduMax. So EduMax is basically a full-fledged learning and collaboration platform that suffices all the needs of virtual learning and teaching experience. What is actually EduMax? It is a virtual learning platform and collaboration-based tool which meets all the teaching and collaboration-based needs of a school and college in these difficult times of pandemic and beyond. It provides a seamless teaching experience at the comfort of your house without feeling the need of having an actual classroom. So now the question arises, from where did this idea came from? It is an idea which was born out completely in pandemic to solve the needs and the pain points of real user. Actually, one day I was talking with some of the children at my society about how they're coping up during the pandemic and how they are basically meeting the needs of remote learning. So from their experiences that they shared with me, I figured out that it was not at all uniform, and all the methods that we're following for online teaching were actually scattered, and there was no uniformity in them. They were actually using 4 to 5 applications for meeting the needs of online learning, such as they were using WhatsApp for discussions. They were using Microsoft Teams and Google Meet for classroom, online classroom thing. And for homework and tests, they were using Classroom. And for basically scanning their homework, they were using some scanner and all those stuffs. So it was basically scattered, and there was no one-point solution that could solve all the problems and the needs of a user. So hence I thought that I should be moving forward with a solution that could meet up with the needs. And hence, when I participated in a mentorship program, I decided to move with this problem statement. So basically, I've told you what the problem is and what is the context. The project objective is basically to bridge the gap between student and teachers for a hassle-free learning experience in the time of pandemic due to non-accessibility of physical classrooms. What is the methodology that I used for designing my application? User-centered design approach. This is basically the most common design approach that most of us use for like moving on with the problem. It is basically a collection of processes which focus on putting user at the center of our process for analyzing the needs, habits, and interaction with the product to their vision of how the product should look like and behave. So before we move on with how we solve a problem, one should basically start with what is the design strategy and what value the product is actually going to give to the people and its audience, and to describe its value as a goal state. So here the few design strategies that I took initially. So the business goal, it is to make a viable solution for online learning to meet the remote learning needs in and after pandemic. The target users are basically students of age 5 to 25 years, the teachers and parents, for tracking the performance of their children basically. The technology constraints are the kind of internet connection they are using and the type of device they use. General tasks are basically the communication via message, video or audio call, homework or test, discussion forum for discussing about a particular doubt or topic, performance analysis of a particular student, task planner for planning your day-to-day task, cross-channel, it will be basically for mobile and website. So to have an idea of the existing competitors in the market of online learning, I took 4 of the applications that were used commonly. First is the Classroom, Aditio, Seesaw, and fourth one is Teams. So basically on the left hand side, I have written few of the features that I'll be inculcating in my application. So to have an idea like how many of the features are already there in the existing application and how can we improve them. So these are basically some of the statistics and like how they actually are. So online learning, if we talk about it, is not in Classroom, Aditio, Seesaw, but it is there in Teams. For homework and test, it is there in Classroom, Seesaw. For video lecture upload, it is there in Classroom and Seesaw and Teams. Performance tracking is there in Aditio only. Task planner and calendar, it is not in Classroom, it is there in Aditio and Teams. So for user research, basically to have an idea of what the real users, their needs, their attitudes towards a particular product, their feedback and all those stuff. So in order to have an idea of what are the needs of your target audience, we conduct user research. There are particularly 2 kinds of methods that we generally use. First one is qualitative method and second is quantitative method, and I basically used both of the approaches for doing the user research. Participants, if we talk about 32 participants actually participated for user research, which were of age between 10 to 21 years. So these are few of the user opinions and insight from the user research that I conducted. The ones in the orange color are basically the opinions of teachers, and the one in the beige, these are basically the opinions of students. User personas, to have basically this like the idea of the target audience, we create user personas. So basically I've taken 3 kinds of user personas to have an idea of like what kind of target audience is there for my product. I have taken one user persona in detail, that is Ashmika Singh, and all her motivations, the goals and frustrations of the user are mentioned, that I have basically dig out through the interview process. Empathy mapping is basically done to identify the users with different mindsets and to know the user, the target user in detail. So what the user says, does, thinks, feels, see and hear. Here we map basically all those stuffs in empathy mapping. Affinity mapping is basically to segregate the large amount of data that we get from user research, and we categorize them in groups. So here I've basically categorized all the information that I got from user research, and I've categorized them in homework and tests, student record, extra activities, timetable schedule, online learning, communication, and issues with online learning. Feature bucketing. So once we move forward from affinity analysis, we actually get to know about what kind of features are we going to use in our current product. So feature bucketing is basically a process for prioritizing the feature that we're going to use for a particular page or for some of the part of our application. So prioritizing the feature, I've used the product. It may not be clear to all of you, but I can tell you, like, it is scheduled as scheduling class, video lectures requirement, communication, collaboration, additional features, and test and homework. Feature inventory. These are few of the main features that these are not all of them, but these are few of them that I've inculcated in my application. That is communication, homework and test, including feedback and image scanner for submitting the homework, discussion forum, solution for duplicate problems asked by students through many channels. Like, many of the teachers were actually complaining that they were being bombarded with many kind of questions or repetitive questions through different channels. So there was no uniform flow for tackling this issue. So for that, there is a discussion forum in my application. Notification for eye movement. There is one more insight that I got actually. That was that the user kind of feel eye strain after like using the device for prolonged hours due to due to the schedule. So in order to reduce that, the user will receive a notification after every 1 hour. Like, the user can actually move their eyes away from the device for 20 seconds to avoid eye ailments such as redness, dry eyes, and watery eyes, etc. There is also task planner and calendar, solution for duplicate problems asked by students through many channels. So basically, the user can plan throughout their day, and they can basically mark what else they want to do in their daily activity. So this is basically the user flow for my application. The information architecture, I've basically categorized the information on the basis of how I've arranged them in different screens. These are the designs. There are actually 25 plus GUI screens for my application. This is one of the certain flow which is there in the application. This is the main screen. This is the splash screen, the login screen. This is the welcome screen. This is the dashboarding dashboard, which is there, like the user can navigate into different parts of the application from this screen. This is the homework one. This is for notification and communication channel as well. Thank you.
Wow,
Also,
Rashida.
yeah.
this
If time allows, I can actually share the designs as well, original designs.
looks like a lot of work, from starting all the user research and analyzing all the information to coming up with this product. I think all of us can unmute, and probably one of us can ask some questions. We still have some time.
Yeah, so basically this is, yeah, we can ask.
Any quick questions?
Mayur,
You're on mute. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, hope I'm audible now. Rashika, this was a great presentation. The way you presented, even the presentation itself and the way you presented, you touched upon every aspect of the UX design. I think it was phenomenal. Is this a actual project or it's a case study?
Yeah, it's a case study actually. I was Actually, I met some of the children in my societies. From there, I thought about taking this problem and taking it forward. So it is,
So
yeah.
okay, and like you knew all the process, like hands-on. Did you had hands-on experience before you started the mentorship program, or
Yeah, yeah,
your
I had.
mentor helped, or the so what value your mentor added in the entire process?
Yeah, so wherever I was wrong, she actually guided me like this thing should be done in this way and all of that. She guided me like the process should be. I mean, I was aware about what kind of process is there, but maybe how to present it and how to present it in a certain manner. She helped me with that.
Yep, yep. Yeah, so I think like that's what is required from a mentor, because
Yeah.
they bring shine to your skill, they bring shine to your process and like what you do, because all of us we know the like what needs to be done, but there are some like details here and there that like those are missed, and that's what a mentor comes in and they fill the gap. So I enjoyed your presentation, Rashika.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashika. We'll move ahead with our second presentation by Ritika, mentored by Swaraj. I think Swaraj has recently joined. Just joined. Ritika has worked for
Yeah, I
wellness.
have joined.
Okay, okay, good. Thank you so much. She's worked for wellness businesses and has a strong art and design background. As well as I got to know that she's also worked in a few media production companies, right? So over to you, Hitika. Good luck.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Hello everyone. My name is Hitika Jain and I'm from Delhi. I have 3.8 years of industry experience in designing, and I have completed my mentorship program in UX research and design. And today I'm going to present my case study with you all. My project name is Clean Space Sell Scrap Without Hassle. It is a digital platform where user and vendor can connect digitally, and user can sell their scrap easily. We all know open dumping leading to a various problems like pollution, health hazard, water contamination, and so on. And people also dump that material which can be easily recycled. So I thought to create such kind of platform where user can find and book a scrap vendor easily and sell their scrap easily. Initially, I don't have any clue and data, so I started googling the things. And after getting some data, I did analysis, and after that, I did telephonic interview with my users and stakeholders. I learned about qualitative and quantitative research. Here are some insights of my quantitative data. After that, I did competitive analysis to know my competitors. And after all the research, I have discovered that people actually facing problem in finding scrap vendors, and user have to keep the scrap for many days. And due to pandemic, they are avoiding going to outside and taking cash. And after the research, I have created persona based on user proofing and from research and data. I have created 3 persona for my users and 2 for vendors. After that, I also learned how to conduct a design workshop. For this workshop, I have used Mido tool, and the conclusion of the workshop is that user major needs are digital payment, hygiene, and schedule booking. And here are some insights of my workshop. I did affinity mapping, I did ideation, dot voting, and storytelling. After the workshop, I finally decided my information architecture and I created this. And after that, I moved to my user scenario. I have created a whole user scenario, and then I created a storyboard based on scenario, and then I also did customer journey mapping. And then I moved to my wireframes. First I made my paper wireframes, and then I moved to digital wireframe, and I also did prototyping. And after the prototyping, I did several rounds of usability testing to reveal the area of confusion and improve the user experience. So for usability testing, first, as a Don Norman suggested, I have only done with 5 users, and I did moderated, unmoderated, and in-person testing. For testing, I used Loopback and Maze tool, and the conclusion. And after the usability testing, after getting all the feedback from the user, I did changes and done again usability testing with another 5 users. Here are some final mock-up of my design. This one is a dash. This one is a home page, uh, and this is booking, and the screens look like this. And last, I want to say thanks to Rethinking UX for providing me this opportunity, and Swaraj also to guided me and mentored me through whole journey and learn what is UX and research. And the the journey was very insightful for me. And thank you all the folks for listening me today. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn and Instagram. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. And finally, I'm pasting my prototyping link with you all. You can share your valuable feedback with me.
Thank you so much, Ritika.
Thank you.
This was another wonderful presentation. I would like everyone to unmute and give a round of applause for her. Also, we have the Ritika link applause. I'll play this for you. So that we have the real stage effect. Thank you, Ritika. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
This was another very detailed presentation with all the UX artifacts clearly mentioned, and I loved how you have actually showed us your qualitative and quantitative results with all the graphs and everything. Thanks a lot. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Mayur, anything from your end?
No, like you can just move on. I have much to say, but I don't want to take up time. But I think the kind of projects that like Rishika and everyone is showing, I think there is a depth into it. It's not just any project. They have gone into detail. I know, as if they would have, if they had more time, they could have done even better research, more insights. But in 3 months, whatever they have done, I think it looks quite phenomenal.
Thank you, Mayur. Thanks a lot. We'll move ahead with a trio: Swati, Tanuja, and Vasudha, mentored by Mayur. So I, yeah,
I'm going to start sharing my screen.
What was unique was that
Can you see my screen?
No, Tanuja, not yet.
will not yet.
Yes, now it's appearing.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to start with introducing myself. If you don't know me, I'm Tanuja Sawant. I recently joined Google as a UX research contractor here, working from Atlanta. I'm a recent graduate from Georgia Tech's HCI program, and I'm passionate about accessibility, inclusive design, emerging technologies, and design systems. Yeah, passing on to Swati.
Hello everyone, this is Swati, and I'm a software engineer turned into UX designer. I'm a freelance designer, have almost 2 years of experience working for various clients for different projects, and happy to be a part of this community and to present my work today. Thank you. Vasudha.
This is Vasudha Shah. I am a recent graduate from Purdue University. I graduated not so long ago. I'm currently working as a UX researcher at People Design. I graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Psychological Sciences with a minor in Human Development pre-medical sciences. And I'm really passionate about research.
I'm going to introduce our mentor too if you don't know him. Mentor is Mayur and he's the Director of Customer Experience at NCR Corporation in India. So we were a group of 4 to 5 people initially as mentees under Mayur, but it's only going to be 3 of us presenting our group work. Moving on. So our mentor walked the team through the UX process of how to go about working on projects as UXers. And this is a broad overview of what our mentor-mentee meets comprised of. So we started off with design thinking process to get a brief overview of user-centered design. And we talked about product design briefs, which helped us to get a better idea of the product and set expectations. And then we dived into planning and UX research. So understanding our users through interviews gave us very actionable insights after affinity mapping and empathy mapping sessions. And we also briefly touched on creating wireframes, prototypes, and conducting usability testing. So our mentorship meets largely focused on planning and research phases, which comprised of research design, that is identifying research methods and to understand who our users were. And we narrowed down to, say, interviews. And interviews gave us qualitative insights. We prepared an interview script to interview our target audience, and which were product designers and product managers. And after the interviews, we analyzed session findings, session recordings to arrive at some findings. So regarding the problem statement of our project, we didn't decide what the product was going to be right away. We didn't put any constraints as to if it should be a mobile app or if it should be a website. We went to the users and we let them guide us what their needs are about the product were. So a problem statement was, how might we design a one-stop platform for product designers and product managers to access resources on a day-to-day basis? And this could be design resources, product management resources, or reading materials, latest news. The key feature would be that they wanted personalized, original, and non-repetitive resources. So one of the first mentorship meets comprised of our mentor walking us through the user-centered design process. We all know what the process is, so I'm not going to walk you through it. But what is really dear to me about this process, it's iterative nature. Through repeated iterations, we can arrive at surprisingly useful solutions, and that is what I think is magical. So after we had introductory sessions, we created a project plan to really writing down what the project background is, what are the goals, who would be our stakeholders, what resources do we have, what do we expect to have as a deliverable at the end of our 3 months, how much time do we have, what are some deadlines, drawing out the timeline, how are we going to work remotely during the pandemic, what are some technology constraints if the software developers or even product managers of the team decide to implement something that a solution ends up with. And lastly, what are some risks, hypotheses, assumptions, and who are we depending on? So this is the inverted pyramid model that we followed. We looked at the newsworthy information like what, why, when, how. And then we looked at some details, important details, and then background information. We also made a product design brief for all stakeholders to get on the same page in the beginning of the project. So this is where our mentor walked us through what a product design brief is and when it should be made. It's usually made in the beginning of the project, and it was not as essential for our project because we were just learning the process as Mayur was showing how his experience from the industry. But this was very useful for us to know that if we are to work in the corporate world or in a real world scenario, how could we make a product design brief so that all the stakeholders involved with the product team are on the same page, they have same expectations. So this gave us an incredible understanding of how to write and present this document. So The brief broadly comprises of objective, target audience, what are the key differentiators of this project, what would be the business benefits and user benefits of the product if we go ahead with the product, what are some mandatory things that the product would have, and how are we going to measure the success and failures, so what are the metrics, and what are the challenges or regrets that we might have later on. So the next session comprised of interviews. So we did interviews with 4 product managers and 8 product designers, and these are some of the people who we interviewed. This interviews helped us really get a qualitative understanding of users' needs, users' frustrations, what they were hoping for. And I'm going to dive a little deeper into this. So for the interview script, we carved out some research goals, and our script consisted of introducing the participants to the project, but not divulging too much information so as to avoid biasing them. And we had some pre-interview questions like how long have you been working as a UX designer, or which company do you work for, to just make them feel comfortable. And then we dive into the main interview questions, and we ask them, say, what does your day-to-day look like as a designer? Or are there any design resources that you use frequently? What are some challenges that you face while looking for design inspiration? And would you say that you're satisfied with the UX profession, and what would you like more? So we had separate interview scripts for product designers and product managers. And after conducting these interviews, we generated transcripts and analyzed the interviews through affinity mapping. So Swati can tell you more about that.
Yeah, thanks, Tanuja. That was a great explanation. And here I move to affinity mapping. So once we have collected the information from the user interviews, we try to organize that into digitally. For this, we have used Miro board, and we used a clusters by putting our ideas from the user interviews, and we have mainly focused on like ideas such as needs and goals from the user interviews, and their frustrations, and if they have any codes, and we try to put that on a digital cluster for each of our participants, and we sort out data into manageable clusters, and from this we could able to get the real insights, and these insights are we could able to discuss with the team, and then we have moved forward to empathy mapping. So this is the first step where we can think in a user perspective, or it's a way for us to put our legs into user shoes and think in with respect to user. So from the list of insights we found through affinity mapping, we created a user personas. Basically, we have created a product managers, one persona for product managers and one persona for product designers, and we placed those insights into each of the quadrant. We make sure that we haven't missed any of the quadrant, because it is very, very important. Suppose if we think say for example, so and so person is doing this action, but what made them to do that action, what he or she is saying about that action, or what does they feel about this action. So it is very important not to miss any of the quadrant while working on empathy maps, and through these findings we could able to find out the pains and gains of the product managers and product designers, and those we try to make as a solution and put those solutions, and we checked how those ideas or findings can be placed on a wireframe, and this is where you can just check in the wireframe screen. And the few of the solutions what we thought from the gains were like pains and gains were like product designers or product managers, they want something consolidated filter where they can access the resources on day-to-day life. That may be like articles, blogs, or such kind of things, and they can also communicate with the other people or other maybe with the similar role to gain some experiences or learn from them. And these are the few solutions we provided through this app. and being a like active member in this community, I was also responsible for Women Rethinkers group. Here we are making a few categories, and thanks to Priya Saraswat for taking initiative for this. And Tanuja, would you like to talk more about this?
Yeah, sure. So, Rethinking UX has really given us a platform to contribute, and the fact that this mentorship program or this program is open to new ideas and is supporting us with resources and mentorships and ideas from a lot of people about how we can give back to this community is amazing. So we have this Women Rethinkers group where we actually meet up, and we're planning different events about how women can break the barriers, or how we can learn from women who have worked in this industry, in the UX industry or in the creativity industry, or even learning from women in any industry per se, and how can we learn from them and apply it to UX. And this is just one of the initiatives of Rethinking UX, but Swati and I are a part of this, and we just joined. I think Swati has been contributing much more.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, that was really a great contribution we are giving to them, and at the same time we are also learning so many things, like being a freelancer. I don't have experience working in a tech companies, like as a designer I'm saying about. So during this mentorship program, Mayur has taught all of such things, how exactly the industry standards follow at the design thinking process. So that was a great experience that I had. And
so more than regarding personally for me, more than going through the user-centered design process or having a hands-on project, what was really valuable from this program for me was the 1:1 mentoring and getting some design feedback for the projects that I was working on. So for example, here on the right side, you would see a screen of like a snippet of what I had been working on for one of my projects, and I used to ping my mentor and ask for some feedback, or even get some interview tips when I was interviewing, and get some feedback on my presentations. Or it was a great opportunity also to give back and attend these sessions for women rethinkers. So what I mean to say is, regardless of where you are at the stage of what you want to do in UX, if you want to learn about UX, this could be helpful for you. Or if you are someone who knows already about how to do UX but just needs some guidance, some backup, that is also fine. And that's what my mentor did for me. So I had explained or gave an intuition that I don't want to work as much on the project, but I would need help in other areas, and I think that worked really well.
Yes, true.
Okay, Vasudha has something to say. Vasudha?
I think Vasudha, you're on mute.
Right. Sorry. That was great, guys. Thank you so much. Adding to what just Tanuja and Swati said, this was just not about doing a project or anything like that. It was more also about getting guidance from someone. So as a beginner in the UX research journey of mine, Mayur has immensely helped me. This program has immensely helped me. When I'd come back to India, I had a goal to become a researcher. I just did not know how and as to who could help me. And I came across a post by Rethinking UX on LinkedIn which said register by tonight, and I quickly did. And little did I know that I would find such an incredible mentor and a great team to work with. And Rethinking UX graciously provided me with a platform for me to learn and grow together, which made me feel that I had won half the battle in starting my career. And so moving on, Mayur gave me step-by-step guidance as to how I could go about my career, which made me feel a little less lost going into my career. And he told me what healthy work environment looks like, which is more important for beginners to know. And then moving on, it was really cool that we had a community here. There were so many people who were more than happy to help me grow in my journey, which was extremely nice. And then moving on, team building and teamwork. I learned a lot from Swati, Tanuja, and the rest of my team members, and how to work in a team. Despite having such varied time zones that we are all in, since they're in US and Germany. So it was great working, in different time zones as well. And then valuable feedback by Mayur and even my fellow mentors. It was great. Everybody always pitched in. Hey, I learned a lot from Tanuja when we were doing the initial interviewing and scripting together. And she told me some feedback which I had written down, and I also wrote down a lot of feedback from Mayur, and that was really helpful as well. There's also flexible involvement for me. There was because I was switching jobs and there was just some personal stuff coming in, and they were all very gracious about me, coming and going whenever I want, and I was still able to learn, and I felt really welcome at every stage, and I learned a lot about design system, affinity mapping, and tools like Miro and stuff like that. So that was really helpful, and it was definitely a great support system. I felt that I'm not the only one sailing in a single boat. It felt like I was with other people, and they've been through some things in their journey, and I am just going through the same thing, and it was just people were helping me, and it felt great. Can you go to the next slide? So, that's how rethinking UX helped me, but how can it help other people when they join in? So it's a great place to start your UX career. When I had come back, I had a academic research experience of 3 years, but I had no industry experience whatsoever in the field of UX. And when I had to switch, I learned a lot from my fellow mentees, my mentor, and other people on the Slack channel. They were very happy to provide me with words of affirmation and just guidance in general. So that was really helpful, and I think that would be great for somebody who's trying to begin their career in UX. You get to learn from experience and compelling designers, leaders, entrepreneurs, product owners, and developers who are just trying to give back to the community, which is just great in general. They don't demand much, and it's just honestly, it's a very good feeling that people are willing to go that far to help someone else, and it's just awesome. UX mentorship, again, all about people trying to come up and help. There's great UX coffee hours. You can learn a lot of how people do things and how people work their Figma and other things. That I attended this Google coffee convo once, and that was amazing. I learned so much and made a lot of notes after that. Again, as I've mentioned, he also taught me how a healthy learning environment looks like, and it's extremely important for beginners to know, because when you're beginning, you don't know what a healthy environment or any working environment looks like. So that's that. And it's also a good free zone. You can talk to people without having somebody judge you, and it makes you more comfortable in this journey. So yeah, that's pretty much about it. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you guys, Vasudha, Tanuja.
Thank you.
Swati. It was a
Thank you.
fabulous presentation, and congratulations to Mayur for planning it up, taking this mentorship program, and we could actually see the amount of work everybody has put in. And I think the most important thing is that working in a group has given you a lot of insights, and it must have been an amazing collaborative effort. Definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll move ahead with our next presentation by Manasvi and Pranav, mentored by Aprajit. Over to you guys.
Thanks. I'll just quickly share my screen.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, can you guys see it?
Yeah, we can see it. Enough. Yeah. Hi everyone, this is Manaswini. Hi everyone, this is Manaswini. I am working at Accenture currently, and I've recently got a UX design job at Accenture.
And I'm Pranav. I'm a second year undergraduate computer science student, and I started learning about UX only in the beginning of this year, and this mentorship has helped me greatly go forward in that. So today we'll be rethinking LMS with you. So meet Aisha. She's a student of economics at Delhi University. And she's pretty, like in a usual scenario, she's a pretty cheerful girl. But recently, she's been a bit stressed out. And why is that? Well, that's because she's been suddenly forced to take her entire learning experience or an entire college experience online. This means online assignments, online exams, and whatnot. But Aisha isn't alone in this. She's just one among countless others who've suddenly been thrown into this teaching learning environment in the online realm. Now, we looked at this as an opportunity because an unprecedented number of people are suddenly using digital systems to aid in their teaching learning process. We thought it's a great opportunity to talk to them, to try to understand how their experience is and what kind of problems they're facing. Now, just because we did this research and thought about this problem during when there's a lockdown situation in place, we didn't want to build a solution that is just relevant while this lasts, because as optimistic individuals, we hope that sometime we'll go back to normal, or should I say to the new normal, or some people say it's already in place. Additionally, new education policy brought out recently highlights the need for inculcating technology into the teaching learning process, and we believe this ties in perfectly into that.
Yeah. So we've divided our research into 4 phases. The phase 1 was about primary research and interviews, from which we've drawn insights and created personas, followed by comparative analysis and journey mapping. Coming to the phase 1, apart from doing the primary research, we've also interviewed a lot of people. We've interviewed about 7 students across multiple universities in India and overseas, and we've been lucky enough to even talk to a couple of teachers and understand their point of view. So we started by asking about their online learning or teaching experience and what platform they've been using currently, or has it changed to it recently, or have they been using something else earlier? So amongst various other questions. And using these insights we've from the research as well as the interviews, we've put together the following 2 personas. This is Aisha. She's a 20-year-old student, 20-year-old sophomore at Delhi University. And due to the pandemic, her entire learning has shifted online, and she's quickly trying to adapt to it. She doesn't want to suffer her grades because of the technical glitches that the online experience offers. So she also finds it difficult to organize all her course materials as it clutters her device. And juggling different subjects, she doesn't want to miss out on any deadlines whatsoever. And then let's meet Rekha. She is a 41-year-old professor, and she has had about 10 years of experience in teaching. As she's not really technologically savvy, she's finding it hard to organize all her content and also collaborate with her administration as well as colleagues. Nevertheless, she sees this as an opportunity to automate some of the repetitive tasks and also schedule the course content accordingly. So from the interviews we've taken, we've also asked them to walk us through the platform that they've been using, and some of which are Moodle and Canvas, which are a fully fledged LMS. Apart from that, Microsoft Teams, email, and WhatsApp has also been used.
So then after doing the research, we also try to map their journey. So for example, this is a student's journey. We broke the journey down into stages. So at the beginning of the semester, the student would get to know what the course structure is and what the grading system is, so they know what's coming ahead. Then as teaching goes on, they would collect resources, which could be class notes or extra material handed out by the teacher. They would ask teachers to clear their doubts and queries, which could be related to the material or just otherwise. They would take tests, submit assignments, and complete all of the types of evaluations and assessments. And finally, would want to check their grades and scores in them to see how they're doing. Now, once we did this, we also took each stage and broke it down further into what the stage is, what a person would do in a physical or a traditional setup, and what they're doing currently in a digital setup. Now, this allowed us to do 2 things. One, it allowed us to compare what is something that is done better traditionally or in the physical way, and what is something that is done better in the digital way. And in addition to that, it also helped us identify gaps in the experience overall.
So even though the traditional learning and classroom teaching has been really good and we've all been there, we think by adding the digital experience to it, we'll be able to provide more. So as for our solution, we've made a list of features we think are necessary in an LMS. For example, some of which are easy discoverability, discussion forums, and deadline tracking. For example, deadline tracking helps the students as well as teachers to track what are the assignments that are coming up, what are due, and what are the exams that are coming up. And discussion forums would help them in doubt clarification, also for announcements for the entire class.
So currently we're in the process of like figuring out each task flow individually, and we're also trying to figure out what the information architecture is going to be like. And once we have this down, our next step is going to be to create a low fidelity prototype using Notion so that we can test it with people and see where it goes from there.
Yeah. In the digital era, we tend to rush into finding solutions without understanding the whole problem. We tend to complicate the solutions when we can shift to already existing methods by refining them. This mentorship has taught us just that.
Yeah, definitely. Like it has taught us to get to the bottom of a problem. So like Aprajit, while we were talking to him, he mentioned this interesting fact that sometimes when you're interviewing or conducting surveys, you would get signals from people you were talking to. And then as a designer, it's your job, or it's rather our job, to figure out what the actual problem is and not just take it at the face value. Additionally, we also learned the importance of documentation. So there'll be often times when you'll forget, okay, why did I take this decision X, Y, Z months ago? Or at the realm of taking a decision, you'll think, okay, why should I do this and not that? So having an ultimate source of truth is really helpful in those scenarios.
Yeah, and it has also been a pleasure to be a part of the Rethinking mentorship program. We've learned so much and grew a lot during the course of time, which wouldn't have been possible without a mentor, Aprajit.
Yeah, we'd like to thank the Rethinking community in general at large, and Mayur for bringing it together in the first place, and this mentorship program for helping us grow in ways we couldn't have imagined before.
Yeah, correct. We've also had the privilege to be able to interact with some of the best minds of design. And we think that the learning won't stop here, right? We'll continue to learn and grow as designers and individuals and pay back to the community in every way possible.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. It was an awesome presentation. The story that you built from the beginning was just amazing. And you know, even if the product was not completed, or I really appreciate that you came up with the presentation and you were not in a hurry to finalize the product or complete the entire flow. So I really appreciate Aprajit for bringing that up here as well, and wonderful presentation. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Garima. Thank you.
One quick, I wanted to, I think it'll take time. How do you create low fidelity wireframe in Notion? If you can connect with me offline, I think that will be great. I wanted to learn more.
Sure, Mayur. Yeah,
definitely. To us too, which Aprajit brought up.
Yeah.
Because I am using Notion for last 6 months, and I have not ventured into creating low fidelity wireframe in Notion. So if Aprajit knows it, Aprajit, I'll ping you tomorrow.
Yeah. Sure. I think it all started with me actually trying to create a course for these two amazing people, because I was finding it a challenge to actually keep track of what are the different topics that I want to cover during this whole mentorship, and what are the things that I could easily share with them. So I actually started using Notion myself for structuring this process, and I realized that it's good because it offers multi-level page views, and then you can like have a tree structure follow-up and stuff like that. Of course, it doesn't provide the whole commenting facility. So we are also, and the other thing which was that it doesn't apply storage. So we were thinking like we could do a little bit between Notion and Google Drive to solve this problem and test it out with some like very low fidelity concept testing with these students and teachers. Because one other interesting thing that I think came up was that it's not always easy to build new software, right? So it's always easier for people who are not having the access or the tenacity to learn new software, get used to something easy that has been existing. So yeah.
No, I think the interesting part that has come in all the presentation is the mentorship is not about knowing everything. The mentorship is about knowing few things and then being smart to implement it when you go back to your like respective organization. In this one, what came out quite loud was, okay, the last mile was putting a good content together. In some other was like putting the like starting phase, like a concrete starting phase. So I think like even if like all 30 of us were here in the entire presentation, I think there are learning for each one of us. And mentorship has always been two-way communication. It's not that it has to always go from mentor to mentees. It's also other way around. So whenever I connected with all my 5 or 4 like mentees, it was like learning both ways, and like that's the beauty of this entire program. Thanks a lot. Thanks everyone. Garima, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Our last presenter, very active member of our community and very passionate about thinking analytical and futuristic. Presenting to you, everybody, Pranjal Chaudhary.
Hello, people.
And this clap has to go for the Pranjal and for the ones who have presented. So you have been biased. You only asked us to clap once.
She missed actually, but it has to go for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, is it visible to you guys? Okay. So, hello people. It's exciting day today. A lot of learning. So, howdy. That's me, Pranjal. Well, people call me digital futurist because I think a lot more into what's going to be the next technology, and I love building products. What's coming next?
Pranjal, can you?
Sorry, you need to go full screen, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice full screen.
Visible now?
Yeah, but you need to present, I guess. It's smaller.
It's already presenting. Is it not getting shared?
We can see the screen, but not in the presentation mode for slides.
Okay, let me reshare once. Is it visible now in full screen? Hello?
No, it is not.
Loading.
No, it's not. You can present any way you want. It's okay.
No problem. I'll open up a PDF. So yeah, I hope it's visible now.
No, it is not, Pranjal.
Okay, what's happening?
Can you present the entire screen or instead of the browser or something?
Let's check. It's already, I guess, presenting entire screen.
Yes. We were able to see Pranjal.
Hold on a second here. I think I'm having network issue. Let me rejoin.
No. Okay. So over to host. Keep the audience engaged.
This is actually a difficult task.
That is actually the most easiest task.
No, I think we tested Pranjal as well, and it was perfectly fine. Somehow he's.
It's okay. It's okay. That's how. That's what happens. We're sitting in the room. So.
But overall, all four presentations were awesome, no doubt. I mean,
yeah.
Primarily the depth of detail, the way people have gone in just 2-3 months scenario, and how the mentors has kind of helped them in terms of brushing up their skills, and primarily also brushing up the presentation skills. The way everyone is presenting their story, that is awesome. Primarily the last one was like full of energy. The way it was presented, the way story was formed was awesome. Thanks to everyone. Cheers, everyone.
Yeah.
I think Pranjal is back.
He is presenting.
Pranjal, you're on mute as well.
Okay, is it visible now?
Your screen is visible. You have to share your slides, I guess.
I think there is some issue in sharing.
We can see ourselves.
Okay.
Is the document on Google Slides? You want me to share for you?
Yeah, please do that. I guess that will be better.
Yeah, sure.
I'll just give you the permission. Can you share your email ID?
Oh no. Okay, yeah.
You can share me with me, Pranjal. You can share with me. I can present.
So on what Alok was saying, just like continuing on what like Alok was saying, see, mentorship and like learning should not be only with like design. Actually, when Tanuja, Vasudha, Swati, everyone were planning for the presentation, and I have not done it before. Actually, I took 2 sessions on how to present, and I have been creating presentations for quite some time. But that was those were 2 days when I actually took 10 steps back, and I made sure that okay, I should tell them how the presentation should be, from where to start, how to keep it consistent, and then where to end. So and that I had not done before. Thanks to all of them, at least now I know there is something on the paper for me. Okay, when I am creating a presentation, it was there in the mind, but now it's on the paper. Maybe one presentation, a half an hour like presentation can be on like how to create a presentation. So there are like many things that you can touch upon if you are connecting as a mentor, mentee, or even as a group once in a week or so. Where is Pranjal?
I am going to present. He just share with me. Pranjal, you're on mute. So you guys can see my screen loading.
Yeah.
Yes.
Am I audible to you guys?
Yes,
Yes.
you are.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So
I
sorry
think
for the
it has to
inconvenience.
close my video, so Pranjal, if you have a network issue, you'll be better.
It's okay. Start.
So sorry for the delay. So yeah, so that's me, Pranjal, and people call me digital futurist because I like to think what's coming next, and I like to build those technologies. Next screen, please. Yeah, so these are my mentors, and I would really like to thank Sandeep and Alok specifically. Well, Alok, I attended your one session, but that was an amazing one. And Sandeep has been a wonderful guy telling me a holistical view of how to lead innovation, how to work with companies like agile startups. And I'm really glad that I became a part of this session. Next slide, please. So I have done my bachelor's from UPES in product designing, and that will be me next year, University of the Arts London, in MA User Experience Design. That should be probably this year, but due to the pandemic, now I have deferred my offer to next year. Next slide, please. So currently I'm working with Sensefort AI Research Private Limited, or Sensefort.ai, and I work in a range of technologies and products, defining from web interfaces, mobile interfaces, gestural and environmental, HMI, human-machine interaction, hardware, consumer electronic devices, robotics, and chatbots, and of course digital humans. So these are all the most innovative and innovation products that will lead the future in next few years. And that is the time when I started with a Sensefort. It was a startup, and I was leading the complete projects just after the graduation. And it was a lot of difficult because I didn't know anything about how to lead a project. And that is the time when I felt the need of, or very strong need, that how to lead the next in digital or physical innovation by design. Next slide. And by next, when I say next, the next things, what we see here is AI, AR, VR, automation, privacy. We have all seen the new series, and the Netflix, and intelligent machines, connected world, predictive personalization, robotics, and a lot of things here. Next slide. So when we talk about next, why exactly do we want to build next? So 88% of the Fortune 500 companies that existed in 1995 all went off. And where did they go? Why did they vanish? Like Kodak, they went off because they were disrupted by other companies, other competitors who had a better business model, who has a better product, better solution, and they can offer a better customer experience. And these people were not ready to innovate and move to a new world or a new era, and they were not able to catch up, and that's why they vanished off. Next slide. And when we are talking about next, what's exactly the next we are talking about? So the industry verticals, there are three. So one is immediate future. You can build a product which is 6 months to 2 years in now in the timeline. You can build the near future product that will be in 4 or 5 years, and you can build something that's far future that will be 10 plus years. Next slide. And that is here our journey began of understanding how exactly can we build the next product and how should we go about it. Because when we start with the stakeholders of the company, they need some hard solutions, hard metrics that if I'm giving you money to innovate, you need to think more, you need to give me metrics, you need to tell me what I'm going to get output. So first thing you need to, if we are looking for innovation of next generation, the first thing we need to understand the business goals of your organization and why exactly do they want to innovate. Are they looking to sustain in an existing market? Are they looking to disrupt an existing market or eradicate a new market? Or they're looking for just a key differentiator for their product to differentiate their product from other products in the market. And once all these things you have analyzed, that's going to help you find use cases or problems to solve for you. But there'll be thousands of problems to solve. You'll feel, oh my God, that's amazing, and that's going to make me next $1 billion. But that's not how it goes. So we need to analyze what problem to solve and what's going to go good for customers, what's going to go good for your business. And these 10 questions that we have prepared is the base for understanding what problems to solve. So what problem exactly you're trying to solve, how many people have these problems, who are your potential customers, is your potential customer aware about your problem or not? Or if they're not aware about that, you'll have to educate them. So that's another thing. So when you introduce a new technology in the market, many a times you'll have to educate people. You have to spend money to educate them. And is the market stable or growing in a holistical way? And how will your solution benefit other customers or the potential customers? And what's the market size you're looking to capture? So when you define how many people have those problems, that could also define what's the market size you can potentially capture in next few years. And how other people are presenting their solutions, how are you different, and what are the channels you are going to use to get to your customers and tell them about your product and identify what they have a problem. Next slide, please. So once you have a few selected use cases, after those problems and identification, you have to identify what solution is going to give your company, your customers higher impact, and what's so urgent for even your company from a business perspective, and for a user or a customer from a need perspective or a want perspective. Next slide, please. And similarly, here you need to give an innovation and feasibility check. Now, I thought of some idea that we don't have a tech that doesn't make sense. If I thought of an idea that's going to take 1 crore or 2 crore rupees to invest in, and it's going to give me return after 15 years, that's also a too long business goals for a startup. So you need to map if your innovation and your technological feasibility, your timelines and everything are in proper way or not. And you need to prepare a project plan with this. And similarly, you need to define costs. So what exactly the cost we are looking at? How will the cost divide? How much will go in the production? How much will go in the development? If we talk about hardware devices, what electronics, where to buy from, who will be the vendors, and all those resources will require and the time will require. That is the next thing to figure out before talking to your stakeholders. Next thing. Yeah, so now once you have identified your use cases amongst all these things, then you have to choose a way to solve your problem. And everyone wants to achieve user-centered design in their problem or in their solution. And there are many approaches. One of them is HCI, and HCI has 4 of the verticals. You can see anthropomorphic vertical. That exactly says designing interfaces or products just like humans. Cognitive ability or cognitive thing deals with human minds, human brains, human sensory perceptions, because we don't just interact with products by touching, right? We interact with smell, we interact with gestures, we interact with tongue, taste, and many of these experiences. How can you collaborate all this to build a successful product? Then empirical. So this is similar what we use in even user experience design, comparing products and analyzing the usability of the solution and how well your customers are working on that. And predictive is all about metrics to identify your customer got into your product, completed a goal, but how well that goal completed, what time he took to complete the goal. That's the metrics you need to look at, and that metrics is gonna help you go back and improve your product. So these are the way you can use HCI, and HCI is not used much in a application-based processor, but it is higher uses in when you go for robotics or when you are thinking about a holistical sensorial environment. Next screen. And this is the approach of UX design. We are all aware about how to do research, analysis, designing, and testing, and there are methodologies that can help you to achieve user-centered design through UX. I'm not going in details of UX design. Next screen. So more than anything in this world and any of your solutions, I think I have seen startups in a hurry to create MVPs and launching it, and they forget about the main things, that we all are humans and we need to be ethical in our designs. And if over these years we have seen largely issues coming up on even Netflix, I guess there are too many series concerned about privacy. So we need to, we as a designers, we can't depend on those CEOs and CXO level people just to think about these. We have to tell them, we have to sometimes educate them that this is what we need to care about. If we do this, it's ethically wrong. We can't do this. And you need to care about people's privacy, their accessibility point of view, what impact your solution is creating on a society. How will the society get impacted? And this society thing can be different from different geographical regions. So if you're creating a product that is global, all these things will come from a global perspective, including all people. You know, we generally tend to forget all about what happens to people who are colorblind, what happens to people who cannot view properly or they can't see. And you know, it's very depressing for those people using those products. So this is one of the most important things to do. And then persuasion and emotions, of course. Your product should not harm anyone's emotion. You know, today we are talking about human generation and human-like talking machines, but they don't understand before saying it, right? If you feed machines something, and you need to first analyze what impact your words that you're feeding into an AI system will make on your customers. So that is very important to think before we make any of the systems. Next screen. And there, when you are done with all these designing parts and all these analyzing parts and everything, and then you need to think on how to get your baby out, because you can't keep your baby after developing so much. And so the first thing, you know, we don't build a whole lot of product at once and just go out in the market and launch it. So we select some features that are most critical to your consumers and that will be most impactful for your business in a revenue generation format or in some other way. So we build an MVP to test the waters of the market. So we build an MVP to test how your users behave with the product, what they do with it, what they want, what I am thinking, or what my problem I'm assuming. Is that even right? Do the people need even this product? Or I'm just spending money before even thinking about the problem is right or wrong. So that way we create MVP, and then we try to gain traction. You know, we don't monetize before we get traction. So when Facebook started, they started with getting people out in their product. They started getting traction, and then they achieved the product market fit. Then they realized that, okay, people need this product, and these many people are coming onto my website. And then we need to think about how to monetize this product. Now, every product that you came up, you need some monetization profits. And that is the perfect time when you can even go for an investment. And it is never suggested that you go directly when you have an idea and you go to the investor and say, okay, look, I have an idea and I need investments. That is not how things work in the industry. So we need to have proven metrics. We need to have proven user base that, okay, these are my users, these people who are wanting this. And now I need money to scale my business or to enhance or get a new version. And then, yeah, the day when you will launch your product. So this is a life cycle of your product from an idea to an innovation. And I have been doing this at SenseForce from a very long time, but I was really not clear on how exactly do we go and how things work. And it was really difficult because at times we have to manage marketing, at times we have to manage how will this product generate revenue, where are people dropping off from the product, and how to increase adoption of these products. These are post-launch things that you even need to think. So this is where I wanted to get more knowledge on how to get a holistical view of the products. And because designers, you know, we go to the users, we go to the customers, we very well know that what customers want, we do research, we create products, then why can't we take it ahead? So it's all about, it's like running a small startup in your own company. So that is what you need to assume when you build a product, and that is your baby. You need to get that product out very well. So next slide. So I think I won't take much long, and I didn't wanted to do some project, but it was a holistical view. And at last, I would say keep innovating round the clock, because innovation is the thing that's going to lead you to the next world and the next profit for your company. And I think Mayur and my mentors have been really supportive in helping to prepare all this, to understand all this, the holistical view, and understand the business language that we need to use to people and how to convince them for your ideas. Because there was a time when I started the device work and our first prototype didn't work, and we invested 25 lakh rupees and it didn't work, and I cried whole night that is the type of frustration you get when your products fail, but you need to stand up again and you need to go back again. So that's my presentation on innovation and the next generation things. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pranjal. It was a fantastic presentation, and there was so much of information in that, and especially keeping that business point of view in mind while developing the entire product. I think that was very, very important for us, all of us, to know. Thank you so much for taking us through your research work. Thanks, Pranjal.
Thank you so much to each and every mentee who presented their journey, their learnings and everything. So I would request each one of you, please do unmute yourself and let's have a round of applause for all the mentees and mentors who have done this work. Thank you so much, guys. Sorry.
I think if all the presentation were awesome. If the last one was slightly more detailed, there were so much to learn from Pranjal. And I think mentorship program, it's not a 100-day process. It is a continued effort. But I think for the first phase of mentorship program, I think this was phenomenal. We had our own share of learning. We were not bang on. We had so many plans. And I would like to give special mention to Vikas Gupta, who is not here because of the medical concern, and Harsh, who started this program with all of us, and Alok, and special mention to Garima, who worked day in, day out for last 10 days to bring this event live. And that's what a wonderful community can do. So one more round of applause for everyone who were part of this and who made this happen.
Can we have all the mentees on video?
Yeah, I would just say
That's amazing.
If you can remove this slide, then I think you can see all of them. Yeah, unshare, then you can see. Stop sharing. Yes, now I think we can see everyone. And I have taken a screenshot. You guys can take too. Yeah, this was good. Actually, now I can see everyone. From next time, so I have not seen Manaswini before on video. Yutika, your photo on profile is different than how you look. Hitika, the same. So I think video should be on all the time. There is a project. His profile picture is different all across. So, and he has not so good video now. So anyway, I think anything else that you guys have, Alok and Garima?
Yes. So with this, I have just two more announcements for you, all of you. So I'll just present my screen again. If you guys can see me. Okay. So one announcement for all the mentees. Your certificates are going to be live next week on the website, rethinkingux.com. We'll have an announcement about this on Slack channel and LinkedIn. Your certificates are going to have details about your mentor, what you have done so far. And on the website, you will have an option to download your PDF of the certificate. Also, the presentation you have presented, if somebody out of Rethinking UX is interested in your presentation, want to learn more, see and revise and understand and recall those stuff, they can download the presentation. And the recording of this event, presenting your stuff to everyone, that will also be available with this link, view recordings. So please stay tuned. You'll be getting an information very soon on Slack and LinkedIn as well about your certificates. And then please do download and share. One more last thing. The next interesting part is about that mentorship program 2.0. It's coming soon. We are planning about this, and with this time we'll be having few limited seats because we have a lot of learnings from the 1.0 program, and we have got a lot of good mentors and mentees already aligned. So if you have your friends who want to join, please ask them to be in touch with us or contact us. Early people might get benefits. So to talk about more of this stuff, I would prefer Mayur, if you can take us through.
Yeah, at
and
least
maybe you can close.
at least to this group, this group should be aware. So 27th of October is a mentorship day, and that's where we are launching our second mentorship program. We had our own fair share of learning, and as Garima and Alok said, we never intended to go beyond 20 mentees, but we ended up with a registration of 100. And we had a challenge because I was not like seasoned to. Me and my team we are not seasoned to handle mentees and mentor at a scale of 100, because we had, I think, 6 initiatives like running at that point of time. But then ho gaya to ho gaya. But this time I think we have our own share of learning. We'll make it even more premium, more engaging, because be a good mentor is one, but a mentor also needs a good mentee. They need to be disciplined. They need to be forward thinkers. They need to look up to the mentor, be disciplined. And we know that in few cases it has not worked well. But I think the date is final. That will be 27th of October for sure, because that is mentorship day, and we will utilize that day. So feel free, stay tuned if you want to contribute as mentor, mentee. The form will be out again, registration form, and we'll start it very soon.
Thanks, Mayur. So with this, guys, we have reached to the end of our session today. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for participating and talking about your learnings and your experience. Thank you so much.